Hello, our team name is SMEV, and this is our app for an outfit builder. My name is Summer Joffrey.
I'm Mohammed.
I'm Emily Huang.
And I'm Vivian Zhang. Our project is an application designed to suggest appropriate outfits to the users based on the day's temperature, humidity, and wind speed. The goal of our program is is to make it easier for people to decide what to wear and solve the common problem of Maryland weather. We all experience this problem, especially in areas like Maryland where the weather is notoriously unpredictable. One day it could be freezing and the next it could feel like summer. We waste time and mental energy trying to figure out what is the best to wear in the morning and only to realize later on that the clothes we are wearing is not fit for the weather. Our program will fix this problem and offer suggestions that are weather appropriate and flexible for changing conditions throughout the day.
So this is how our program works. We use a weather API to retrieve weather data such as the high and low temperature for the day, the humidity, and the wind speed. We then convert this data into variables in our weather class, which is one of the classes that we've created. And then these variables are used to decide the layers, material, and rain protection the user should wear on the day the program is being used.
So our project has definitely undergone a lot of major changes over the process. In the beginning, before we actually started coding, we wrote out skeleton functions for what we thought we wanted to put in. Um, and these were really bad. We hadn't even considered that we would need to use an API in order to access the weather data. So we have no function to indicate any sort of API. And we had separate classes for reading the different weather attributes and separate functions for determining the outfit attributes and a bunch of unnecessary outputs. And that was just our initial draft. Once we actually started coding, we realized we were running into a lot of problems. The first obviously being we had no way to access weather data. So we implemented a function to read the API. The weather data is stored in different dictionaries in the API. And so we had three different functions to call these three different dictionaries to access the different weather attributes that we wanted. But after we implemented an if name equals main statement, we were able to simplify and condense this into one function to read the API. And then after reviewing the API documentation, we also had to change a couple of the weather attributes we wanted to access because some were like paid programs only and some were like XML format only, and we were using .json. Um, we're currently in the final stages of finishing up our code after we decided which attributes to implement into the outfit class. Something like we originally wanted to try like the length of the pants and the length of the sleeves that we wanted to suggest, but then we realized that everyone would have different like modesty or like comfortability requirements, and so we didn't want to like impose any kind of like our own like bias onto that. Um, and so we got rid of the length attribute. And then things like layers, we didn't know how we wanted to suggest the number of layers the user wanted to wear. So we ended up doing the maximum number of layers you should wear in a day. And we figured that users could decide when to take them off throughout. These were relatively minor design choices as opposed to changing huge chunks of code like earlier in the editing process. And it runs as intended through the terminal currently, but we're working on unit tests. So here are just some photos. On the left is our very first code skeleton. You can see we had like a bunch of different classes, a bunch of different functions. And then on the right, you can see we were starting to delete a lot of our old stuff and implement the new after condensing into like one main response.
So in addition to the issues that Emily just discussed, there were also a few more main problems that we had to go about solving. The first being the API key and not being able to properly retrieve the data that we needed. So in order to solve this, we all made our own configuration files with the same API key so that we would be able to access the data and information regarding the current weather status. Our next issue was lacking clarity in the instructions, and there was a bit of vagueness as well. So to solve this, we made sure to communicate with the TAs and to get any clarification with any parts that we were even a little confused about, and to properly understand what is expected of our code and its complexity. And then our final problem was with the unit tests. We were very confused about those initially, and we were able to reach out to the TA for further specification and to actually get help with writing the code. In addition to that, when writing the code ourselves as a group, we were able to follow an example outline that we had found online.
So here's an example of some output from our program that demonstrates how it will display the weather data after the user inputs a city. So we have the current temperature and then high and low temp, and then we have humidity. So anything above a 55% would be considered humid. And then we have wind speed and just like the sky, if it's raining, precipitation, clouds, that kind of stuff. And then we have our recommendation at the bottom. And it has layers and materials and whether or not you should bring an umbrella.
Thank you.